You know, sometimes you have a bad experience with a company or something personal that happens to you, whether it's, you know, testing with a drug. You take a drug and next thing you know, your family member gets addicted to Vicodin, they can't get off of Vicodin and they harm themselves. So for the rest of your life, all you're doing is studying Vicodin, right? And doing whatever you can because you're just like obsessed to get to the bottom of it to see what really happens. Sometimes in military, an accidental, somebody dies or there's a suicide and all these other things that happen, you commit your life to wanting to know more about it. Did this kind of get you to say, you know what, I want to kind of get to the bottom and see what the hell is going on? Or were you kind of like, I don't want to have anything to do with this, I'm moving on in my life?
So I just want to say that there's no sort of revenge scheme I have against Facebook. I'm just one little person. I'm not here that, like, if I was trying to go after Facebook, I would definitely have tried to go on like Oprah or many other different shows and try to like say my story. For one, I don't really want to be famous, known as, hey, you're the guy that watched fetuses be smashed with hammers for 10 hours every day, 6 days a week. Like, that's not really what I would want to be known for. The reason that I'm doing this and I speak out is because when I started working with Facebook, I thought that the least I could do is try to help the people and animals whose last moments were being desecrated. Even if it's on video or picture, people that were mocking it, making fun of it, getting off to it with sexual pleasure. I wanted to at least help these animals and people in their dying moments and at least give them closure. That's all I wanted to do, is try to help. And they even kind of sold it to us when we first started with the training, is that you're going to be the police of Facebook. You're going to be policing it, monitoring it. You're going to make it a safer place. And I really bought into that. I wish I could, wash my hands of it all and just go, I don't care anymore. I don't want to hear it anymore. But there was too much that happened on Facebook that should not have ever been allowed. And I would probably put money on it, those same people are still making that same content. One thing that really got to me, and this happened last year, and it was this woman that works, that was an activist, and she was telling me that she was going to Congress to talk about these specific things. So we talked a couple times, and last year she called me and she said, did you work on these specific types of things in Texas? And it was about these girls that were being held in their parents' basement and being used as like sex toys and prostitutes. And I said, yes, I did work on that. Apparently the authorities just found out at that time and arrested them. That was 2 years after I left Facebook. And I wrote the report on that. And I did my best to make sure the authorities would try to get it, make sure Facebook would take it seriously, but Facebook wouldn't let it get out. And so those girls suffered for 2 extra years. And there were many other cases similar to that. And they wanted me to confirm that that I actually sent a report in and discussed that stuff. And it just makes me mad that they suffered 2 extra years because Facebook couldn't even do the right thing and let the authorities know what it was. There was another instance, and it was one of the first things I saw. And it was these 2 boys, and they grabbed an iguana by the tail and they smashed the iguana onto the pavement, and the iguana was just screaming. I've never heard an iguana scream, and I don't think most people have. And they kept doing it and smashing the iguana onto the pavement until it was just a bloody pulp with a tail. And apparently those boys had their own private Facebook page where they were bashing other animals to death as well. And they never took it down. That iguana video was still up, and they were making more videos of more animals they were killing, and they were getting paid for it. that's why I want to get this message out, is because people are suffering and nobody's doing anything about it. And you may think that it's all just on a different screen. It's not real. They want you desensitized to it. But people are actually making money off this thing. And I think that's the most disgusting thing in the world, is that people are getting paid, and there are people that want to pay you to make this content. And that's why I do this. And yes, I would like to get to the bottom of this. I would like to know more about what the heck they're doing in there.
For somebody, for somebody who's on the inside, Shawn, who this is your world, what can Facebook do? Meaning, is it in their control to be able to address this and stop it? That's one. So let's just say the answer is yes. If the answer is yes, what can they do? They've been talking about AI for a long time. From your perspective, and again, Shawn, I appreciate you for sharing that, and it's 100% felt from speaking to you. It's very obvious that you're not doing this for a dollar. You're doing this because, animals and people matter to you. Even when you said earlier, I'm not a politics guy. I don't follow politics. I don't know what's going on with politics, but it's not my world. But what would you say? What would you say, on what they can do to eliminate all of this? Is it AI? Is it internal team? What do you think that is?
So the first thing that they truly need to do is, if Facebook really wants to make this change, is Zuckerberg has to step down, because Zuckerberg is he's the one in the way of all this. He's the one that makes all decisions. He's the one that signs off on everything. And this is Zuckerberg's creation. So if we had someone that was not him in control, then perhaps we could actually get something done, because I don't see Zuckerberg ever bending the knees, so to speak, to actually make these changes. What I think needs to be changed could be, Facebook needs to be divided up into different segments, and then have these different independent individuals actually be in charge of these segments. Maybe we really do need some sort of government influence looking into this. I know a lot of people will claim that that would be like an oversight of the American government. But when something has grown this big and it has such an importance in not just our society, but world society, maybe it needs to not be a private company, and maybe it should be some sort of public entity. I mean, Facebook is so big, along with other social media sites, that maybe we shouldn't consider it a private company. Maybe we should consider it as something as a public square. Maybe it should be considered something that would be the equivalent of going out in public and saying something, and not something that is controlled by a private entity. The only other thing I could possibly think of Facebook to do is, maybe Facebook just needs to do a total revamp of their policies. Because when I was working there, even though the policies were changing by the day, they were only changing by specific current events, and they would only change for like specific people. So like a great example would be during the Justice Kavanaugh hearings. I'll use that example again. Normally, you're not allowed to make any sort of disparaging, bullying comments about people that claim that they are survivors of rape or molestation or anything like that. But Facebook made an exception with Dr. Ford. So you were actually allowed to make fun of her for that. Oh, I apologize.
It's okay.
And
they made an exception. You were saying they made an exception for Dr. Ford.
Yes. So everybody could make fun of her. Everybody could like claim that she was asking for it. She was a slut. She was a whore. They could claim that. And for normal cases, you're not, because it would get deleted. But those were like the examples of like policies changing for specific people or specific events. And their policies were so hyper specific. I think in a normal ruling body, we could all agree that, you know, killing animals online should be banned. I don't think there's any reason why we should have it on there. But apparently there's still like a lot of stipulations, like you can kill animals on video, as long as it's in like an eating, preparing food setting. Or you can also kill animals if it's in a perceived self-defense setting, where there's a lot of people that took advantage of those and they just like mutilated a bear because they claimed that they were hunting a bear in self-defense. And so they had a caption that said like, we're killing the bear in self-defense. And they were like ripping its jaw off and like just torturing the thing while it was still alive and drugged up. And Facebook allowed that because the caption said, oh, it was in self-defense. So of course we can allow that. So it's just like these policies are just, they're so easy to find loopholes on.
So if you like this little short clip from an interview I did, click over here to watch the entire interview. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.